Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world. Welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and joined as always by Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Bonelli, live. I mean, not if you're listening to this as a podcast, but we're live when we're talking, when we record this. And today's topic is all about equipment. And we know this is a fan favorite topic because equipment costs lots and lots of money, and hockey is a sport that is maybe one of the most expensive sports of all time. Whether you have one kid or 4 kids or 10, if you have a wallet, it's most likely empty if you're a hockey parent. I've been hearing that for years. So we wanted to do a special episode today with some tips and tricks about equipment, what the right things to do, the wrong things to do. Probably most importantly for you listening is really where to spend your dollars, because there's a lot of mistakes people make to save money where they probably shouldn't. And then adversely, there's a lot of mistakes people do to spend money when they probably shouldn't. So we wanted to give you guys some tips with that and make sure that you're going well. So Christy actually came up with this topic. So Christy, I want to let you talk for a little bit about this, because again, I'm the newest hockey parent here personally, right? Now I've played hockey, so I've had to dish out my own money for my own equipment, but I've never really done it from a parental point of view. So Christy, why did you want to do this episode?
All right now, a lot of garage sales are happening. So people are putting out their hockey gear, and hockey parents are looking for some deals and steals, which is great. You can pick up some really good used equipment in garage sales. So check the condition of it very carefully.
Right.
And I do want to caution, especially about helmets. It's one of my pet peeves. You should never buy a used helmet. Right. Because you want to protect that noggin. That's so important. And you don't know what that helmet has been through. Also, if you're tempted to buy one, there's a hex sticker that you should look for. So look at that and see what the date is on it. For those of
you listening, Christy just held up a helmet, and maybe you don't know this. Again, we're going to go through actually multiple points of equipment.
Right.
But helmets have certifications that they have to have, right? And they do actually have expiration dates too. So go ahead, just make sure you're describing what we're looking at.
Right. So you look at the sticker and it says certified 2015. So right. That's outdated. I grabbed my son's helmet and it's like, wow, that looks like such a great helmet. And it really is. It's beautiful. Looks like it's in great shape. But then look at the date. That one expired in 2008. You certainly don't want to buy a helmet like that. Right. And always buy a new helmet. I just think it's a better idea. Again, you don't know what that helmet has been through. It's just safer for your kids. You don't want to skimp on that. Other stuff you can buy, knee pads, look at them carefully, make sure they're in great shape, make sure they fit right. You want to make sure that the knee pad goes a little bit below the knee. And when your pants are fitting over it, make sure the pants go a little bit. This is what I meant to say. The pants go below the knee. Our kids go through so many growth spurts. I've had coaches tell me in the middle of the season, hey, your kid needs new pants. And you're like, what? I just bought pants. Well, look at them. All of a sudden, they're above the knee.
I've got a story about that.
Giving them the protection. These kids grow like weeds during the season.
I've got a story for that for later. So let's stay on the helmets for a minute, because I kind of want to go through each piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So basically, there's 3 or 4 really important pieces of equipment that you really need to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And then there's others that are a little less important. I don't mean in terms of protective, but you don't have to invest an incredible amount of money into them to be safe. But when it comes to a helmet, Christy is 100% right. Yeah. Especially today, when you look at the time period we're in. Look, things with CTE, concussions, any type of head injury, medical science and technology have really advanced over the last 10 years in that, prior than any other period. So first things first, if you have a helmet that was expired over 10 years ago, I would recommend heavily, do not use it, even to practice. Okay. One of the things about helmets, and I've heard parents say this, well, my kid doesn't check yet. And I go, does your kid fall down?
Yeah.
Does your kid fall down? Because if your kid falls down, they're hitting their head. So, and Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this too, but Christy's 100% right. Invest well in helmets. Do not let your kid tell you they don't need a new helmet if it's too small or if it's not fitting correctly or if it's expired. By far, the most important piece of equipment your kid's going to have is their helmet. Right, Mike? I mean, you got to invest.
I've got one on because Mike.
She's putting it on right now for those of you listening. Make sure you watch this episode if you're listening to the podcast. If you want to see Christy Casciano burns in her helmet.
To me, that's not a good fit.
Right. It's wobbling on her head.
It's wobbly on my head. How should that fit rest on a kid's head? Explain that to every parent out there.
Yeah. So you could see on that helmet, I know these helmets here like this. So some of the more advanced helmets that are coming out now actually are fitted from the inside rather than fitting on a shell. So right now that Bauer helmet and CCM and, a lot of helmets, right? Every helmet I grew up with, was a 2-piece shell. So you'd have screws on the side and you open it up, put it on the kid's head, close it till it didn't move. And then there's your helmet. So with science and the way these helmets are coming out now, all that technology is now getting put into like the bed of the helmet where the head is going to be. And that's what's being adjusted. So you adjust, you're adjusting the pads, you're adjusting the stuff inside,
right?
So that the helmet is floating on this other stabilizing piece. And that's, if you look at what football helmets have done, lacrosse helmets have done, they're going with a lot less pieces and the more protection in the inside. And I think I would agree wholeheartedly 100%. The helmet is like where I just don't even understand how somebody would skimp elbow pads, shin guards, skimp on all. If you have to save money on anything, save money on those pieces. You can't save money on a helmet with a proper fitting face shield. You see some of the kids like Christy, when you put that helmet on, and if you're watching the episode, if that chin piece is below the chin, it's actually going to cause more damage than not having a mask on at all. So I think where that chin piece is, you see that chin piece is already below your neck almost. So that when you get hit, now it's obviously your son's helmet, but just having all those pieces, clips, anything that's attaching that mask on the helmet, you just want to make sure it's fit. And if you're a new hockey parent, go to your local shop. These are that's where they get, that's why they get paid the big bucks. Get a proper fitted helmet that will, and the nice thing is most helmets are going to grow with you over at least 2 to 3 years. You're most likely until you're in high school aren't going to get a helmet that's the last helmet you buy.
Right. And you want a nice snug fit too. How do you feel about a lot of times when my kids were little, they'd be a little loose, so they put extra padding in there to make it snug. How do you feel about that? Or should we just go with a helmet that fits better? What do you think?
Yeah, well, you want the helmet. You don't want the helmet jiggling around. The whole idea is that it's not it's not just laying on your head; it's protecting your head. So I think when you talk to helmet manufacturers, I think that's why they're going towards this other system now, where all the adjustments are getting made on the inside, and like when you're seeing padding. Let me see this one. Like this one, the padding comes out, and then they'll have a thicker pad that will go in there and adjust the helmet for your kid. And again, the nice thing too is you'll hear most of the kids like that's probably one of the most uncomfortable pieces of equipment too that a new player gets. So like, it's heavy on my head, or like my eye, my bangs are in the way. Just get a good, properly fitting helmet. You have girls that have ponytails. You got to watch how that helmet's fitting with any kind of other things that are on their heads. So I think it's just a matter of a good fitting helmet that attaches to the chin, but professionally get it fit. And there's all kinds of ways that can be adjusted. But I think once you get that helmet that fits and it's comfortable, and a player can, whether it's an eye tech, a see-through face shield or a cage. You just want the biggest thing is you want it to fit properly on the head, so it's not wobbling around on their head.
Mike,
and you see this all the time, right? On new players, they got brother or sister's helmet. It's been in the family for 15 years, and they just keep giving it to the next kid.
Yeah,
and
that's gotta stop, parents. Buy them a new helmet. Invest in a helmet.
Yeah.
If anything else you would invest in the helmet.
And Mike, I do want to echo a couple things you just said as well, is that this is an item you do want to go to a pro shop for. I think a lot of parents can think, well, these guys don't really care. Every pro shop person I've known, they're kind of trained to do this correctly because it's a liability if they're not. So, if you're not sure, or if you have any questions, go to a pro shop. And, with things opening up again, obviously, go to a pro shop and have someone fit your kid for the right helmet. Odds are they're not trying to swindle you to get the most expensive helmet. They're going to try and get you the right helmet. And helmets are expensive, but that's why you go to a pro shop. All right. You want to take the time with the helmet. Make sure, as Christy said, that it's also to date. They do have expiration dates. I was going to tell that funny joke about, Mike, I think when we were kids, the helmet was made more with an external impact in mind of like, oh, if the puck hits me in the head, I don't want my head to crack open. Which, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing. But the technology has turned towards, no, we have to protect the brain from actually falls and hits, not just the puck hitting in a helmet. So, well, ever evolving technology,
right?
Stay on top of.
And at the youth
and
hockey
make your kid wear a mouth guard too.
Right.
Please.
Well, the youth hockey level, it's all about obviously the helmet, but it's about how that face guard fits on that helmet. It's not, you don't just have a half shield. You're the youth hockey player. They're going to wear a face shield probably for their whole hockey career. 98% of the players out there. So just learn how, what that feels like. Chrissy, exactly like me. So I fall either way sometimes on the mouth guard thing with the way they're storing it. Whether I like the hookups because it's always there, but then do the kids clean them? Do they take them off? It's like, holy moly, like me, like, again, going back to the conversations we had, earlier, about cleaning your equipment. Sometimes, that mouth guard that attaches to the helmet stays on the helmet for, 6 months.
Season.
So,
or if it doesn't, it ends up in the bottom of the hockey bag.
Right.
Which is really gross.
And mouth guards are getting expensive.
I used to get a plastic bag and a container and make Sophia and Joe put their mouth guards in there. And when we got home, I would clean it. I put it in, toothpaste, rinse it out, mouthwash, just scrub it clean. Takes 2 seconds.
Is make it part of the routine. Make it part of the routine. Like so my son, again, my son's younger, but my son knows that, after practice, we get the jerseys, we get the socks and the undergarments out and we put them in the washing machine. It's part of the routine. And if he doesn't do it, he gets in trouble. So I think the same thing with the mouth guard, especially now when we're all germaphobes, right? Just tell your kid, take your mouth guard off, put it in this tin, and we're going to wash it every game. And listen, parents, don't forget to explain why you're doing that. That's something that, we just got to wash it. No, listen, there's a lot of germs in your mouth. There's a lot of germs in your bag. And we don't want you to get sick. We don't want you to get sick.
Right. And I think kids get it a little bit better today after COVID. I think it was a hard time explaining that to my kids pre-COVID, right. But now everybody gets it. Yeah. They understand the importance of cleaning and washing, disinfecting. Right. Because they want their lives to get back to normal.
I think for the next 20 years, we're all going to be expert at hand washing finally. And maybe people actually start wearing masks when they're sick for a change too. That would be nice. Stigma's gone.
Well, I think as a youth hockey parent too, it's so imperative to teach your kids, like that's part of the protection piece that, a lot of kids don't wear mouth guards until it's mandated. Right. And what happens is then they can't wear them and they can't get used to them. And then you evolve like a teenager is going from a mouth guard that with a mouth guard that's fit for braces and, knowing how to wear those. So I think so anytime you can start, putting your son or daughter in the proper equipment as early as possible and learn that this is just like a neck guard, right? It's just, learn what is the protective equipment to wear, get them in as early as possible, get them used to what that is so that it's not so foreign to them when you ask them to do it when they're 11, 12 years old. Right. Now they have like gag reflexes going on and they can't like, I can't never wear this mouth guard.
Look cool.
And then the kids that just wear it, on the side, you're not even wearing it. They're just kind of holding it in their mouth. And I think that's just a matter of everything fitting.
Yeah, mouth guards are also part of the concussion equation too. They're really important, especially when you're getting into the checking ages. Mouth guards are not just important for your teeth; they're important for concussions because, as we know, when you get hit really hard, you bite down with your teeth, and that's
so they're probably more important for concussions. I mean,
right.
They're right now with the face shield, the mouth guard really isn't protecting your teeth anymore. It's really for that. Yeah. It's for that concussion protocol. The helmet, the face guard, the mouth guard, they all act as a protective layer for a contact sport. And I would say that
I don't think a lot of parents realize that's really a part of the whole protective package when it comes to protecting the brain. You need that mouth guard, you need that good helmet, you need that cage. It's all encompassing. It's not one one is better than the other. All three work together to protect your kid's
Right.
head.
We have my kids. I talked to the kids I coach, especially the boys. It's always like, well, why do I got to wear a mouth guard in practice? I go, well, you're getting hit in practice 1,000 times more than you ever will in the game. I said, this is actually where you're going to get hurt.
Right.
So I said, you know, it's not just the neck guard and the mouth guard are there just for the games because it's the rules. The rules are in place to protect you.
Right.
So just get to a point where it's just part of the process of putting your equipment on.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you guys pick the next piece of equipment. Christy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to talk about skates or sticks next?
Sticks.
Sticks. That's a fun one. All right. $300
it is
sticks.
A fun one. And
don't say that. Don't say that. It doesn't have to be. Come on.
My kids are obsessed with their sticks. Okay.
Yeah.
That they can spend hours in a pro shop just going down the line and trying out sticks and just drooling over the latest models. And that's fun. But when they're little kids, you do not need to buy a $250 composite stick for your 6-year-old. You really don't. They're fine with the basic model. Another trick that I learned is at the end of the season, a lot of the pro shops want to get rid of merchandise. That's a great time to shop. You can get some really good deals on sticks and other gear because they want to move that stuff out because all the new models are coming in and they got to make room.
Like
you can get some good deals. Yeah. Do some shopping now. It's a great time to do it.
I can tell all of you listening too that as a child gets older or as their game evolves, there are advancements in stick technology that will benefit them. But as Christy's saying, when they're 7, 10, 12, you're still in the fundamental learning stages of the game. Now, I'm not saying they need to grow up with a piece of lumber like we did, although I think that can be very beneficial in a lot of ways to let kids know the history of sticks. But, you know, my kid has a $60 stick, and it actually has no branding on it whatsoever. And I told him that when you learn how to puck handle and you learn how to shoot, we can start to talk about, you know, better sticks and things like that. I will also tell
but what's the flex on it? What's the flex?
He doesn't need to know that, right? Yeah, you know, the funny part about flexes is, you know, when you cut a stick, you're changing the flex. You know, there's a lot of technology in sticks, and
there is.
And don't get me wrong,
which is fun for your kids to learn.
Yeah,
I mean, you'll hear them in the locker room talking about all that, and it's fantastic. It's really fascinating.
Right.
But when they're 6 and 7 years old, they don't have to have the bells and whistles on the stick.
This is what I'll tell the parents. Remember this phrase: the player makes the stick. The stick does not make the player. Okay. I can give an NHL player almost any stick. I'm not saying they're going to like it, but they can still do most of the stuff they want to do with that stick. I will also tell parents this is a warning. If you get your kid a top level stick, it is extremely hard as a player to go backwards from that stick. All right. I can tell you that I've been using top level sticks for probably a couple decades now. And I have a hard time going down in levels from sticks because the technology is that good. Okay. So I'm making a counterpoint here now. It sounds like I'm saying, well, why would I not just get them the best stick? It's because at the younger ages, and Mike, I want you to speak about this, you're still developing, right? Once you have some basic motor skills, once you have some muscle memory, that's when you might want to dive into, okay, let me find the right stick for me between high flex, mid flex, you know, the kick points. Like, again, when you figure out what type of player you are and you start getting to that level, that's when you want to start exploring stick options that, you know, go towards you as a player. Right, Mike? Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, if you want early success for your players and your 6, 7, 8-year-old players, I mean, the one suggestions I would make is not cut down your older son's stick and make it his stick, you know, for the 6-year-old, because the technology that's out there, well, it's always been out there. I mean, the shafts of the stick are smaller,
right?
The blades are smaller, right. They're weighted differently. So you want that, you know, I don't know if it's an advantage or just the chance to say, listen, this is just the proper stick. You wouldn't give your kid, you know, a 32-ounce bat, you know, when he's you know, 8-year-old. Well, some parents would, he's got to get stronger and he can swing that, he can swing anything. I get all that, but he's shooting a lighter puck, most likely him or her, you know, at the youth level, or then they're getting into 10U and 12U. It's just, there are proportioned sticks, but you don't have to go. And I'm a top brand guy. You know, I want the latest Project X stick, right, and the lightest stick on the market, and something that's going to make me feel good as a shooter because I know the mechanics of shooting better. But if I'm a student of the game and I'm learning to play, then if you could get the same shaft, same size, basically the same flex, And one of the things that I think parents need to understand when these kids are 12, 13, 14 years old, the sticks that are made today for the pros, those sticks that you're getting aren't made to be used for
Right.
6 months season and shot 4,000 times in the
They're
driveway.
made for one shift.
They're made for performance.
Right.
And I think so getting the lower level stick price wise that has the same performance built into it and buying more of them over the season, I think is a smarter choice in my opinion. But it's just a matter of finding the right balance for you.
Right.
I love, Christy, the kids go. That's why these pro shops are great. You go in, you try them, you feel them, you like the way they look. Don't look for Crosby's name and say,
Right.
that's my stick.
Right.
Mitch Marner. Oh, that's my stick. That's how I play. And you have to find a way to get the stick that fits you, your weight, not so much the flex. I don't recommend, don't go to the pro shop and start flexing sticks. And, you're not going to be too happy leaving there with paying for a broken stick that you broke. But I think knowing the type of stick you want, but I think at the younger levels, don't just cut down an older kid's stick and say, this will be fine. If you want to do that for the driveway and stick a hockey wraparound in there, go nuts. But I think if you're going to get a youth stick, get a youth stick and let the player grow into it. And I think, I've seen stuff on social media all the time, and you see the parents that have like the kids sticks we talked about this before, right? The growth chart, you're a hockey parent when, well, and you started off with that intermediate stick and you've now grown, keep that stick for your kid, but just find the right one that fits at the younger levels.
Yeah. And as they get older, you will want a backup stick because the stick will break.
Well, I have one thing to say about that. One thing, there should never be a backup stick. Get 2 sticks that are your sticks.
Right.
Because you have no idea. Like me, I have a backup fishing pole, but then when I break it in the car door and then I don't have the right pole anymore. I think it's the same thing. I and that strikes a nerve in me just as much as helmets. So 2 sticks, exactly the same. Don't get the longer one and shorter one. Oh, when I play defense, I use my longer stick. And when I play right wing, I use my shorter stick. Find a stick that fits you. Find that same stick. Tape it the same way. Cut it the same way. Use it in practice and games. And I think even just that fact that have 2 sticks. Don't come
to practice. They will break. You think, that'll never break. They will break. Right at a crucial moment in a game.
Especially when your boys, get to be like 12, 11, 10, 11, 12 years old. They want to break it. Like they're doing everything they can to break that stick because they want to feel like, I broke a stick. I'm like, don't break that stick. That was $280.
Another thing too with hockey sticks is, and I want to say this too, like, look, I understand, and I'm sure all the people listening and Mike and Christy, look, there is a certain magic when it comes to the wand, right? When it comes to the stick. And like, you don't want to take that out of your kid, but you do want it to be realistic. Okay. I mean, look, there are a lot of hockey parents out there that just literally cannot afford the top level sticks. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to go back to what I said. The player makes the stick. All right. If your kid wants to be good, it doesn't take the top level stick to make them good. And I think that just quickly want to segue that into hockey sticks as a teaching tool. All right. We all know about hockey curves, right? My kid's first stick was a straight blade. His second stick was nearly a straight blade because I want him to use both sides of the blade, forehand, backhand, and really understand how to use that. He'll have a time to get into curves, but he's 7. I don't care if I get him Ovechkin's curve. He's not going to have a 90-mile-per-hour wrist shot at 7 years old. So one of the best tips I ever had during my development was not to use a big curve. And I noticed, especially as I was developing, that I was starting to have an advantage over the other kids because I did not have a big curve. I could use my backhand better than most because it was straighter. And then obviously as I got to college and then beyond college, I started to get a little bit more meticulous in exactly how my curve was, exactly what flex, exactly what lie, exactly how I taped it, but that comes much later, later on. Right. So, and again, what Mike said, it's nice that they put the pros' names on the stick. I mean, that goes all the way back to, Pop Warner football and little kid baseball. But it comes down to the right fit, the right feel, and you do not have to break the bank to get a stick that works.
Right.
All right. And
right size too. Make sure your kids have their skates on when you size that stick in that pro shop before you walk out the door, because it's got to be the right size too. So have skates on, and when it comes up to the nose, right? If I'm
is that the nose. I mean,
correct measurement right up to the nose.
Let your kid feel it. See how the blade lies. Because Christy, the truth is this: some kids, 100 hunch over a little bit. Some kids sit back a little bit. So there is a little bit of
Mhm.
variance on that. I mean, the standard is the
Mhm.
chin or the nose, but let them
Yeah.
hold the stick. See how the blade lies flat when they're holding their stick.
Mhm.
And there's, that's something you can teach your kids. That's why it doesn't matter what stick you're using, right? And again, different lies hold sticks different ways. I
Yeah.
can tell you this, Christy. I used to have back issues. Just a quick story for the audience to show you how delicate this can be. And one of the reasons I had back issues is because they found out I was hunching over a lot when I played.
Oh.
So I went to physical therapy for a while, and this is when I was playing pretty competitively. And they kind of reformed my posture, and I noticed that my back was feeling a lot better. But I was missing pucks on the ice, which something didn't compute, right? And what we found out was that I was actually sitting up about an inch taller because I was sitting back a little bit more. So I had to add an inch to my stick, and then all of a sudden things were normal, and I felt a lot better, to be fair. But that just shows you like how your kid holds their stick, how they're postured. It can really change the height of the stick. And I got to say this too. I had a parent one time. I remember when I was in I think midget, and I cut about a half inch off my stick. And one of the parents he was a mean guy. He's like, "That's ridiculous. That's not going to do anything. That doesn't mean anything. You don't need a half inch." I still to this day, I'm like, this guy had no idea what he was talking about. A half inch can make a difference between how your blade lies and not, and again, this was later on. I was probably 17, 18 years old, but it really made a difference. And not to mention, I felt more comfortable with my stick that way. So, that shows you how minute this can get later on. But when you're 8, when you're 10, it doesn't matter as much.
Well, the great thing too about going out of a wood stick now and having these composite sticks is the ability to buy composite plugs, they call them, right? So if your player is growing throughout the season and you're not so worried about that 40, 45, 50 flex, if that's not a crazy piece for you, then you just buy the plug,
right?
And you can extend the life of that stick. And I think that's, like, to me, that's a great way to save some money and then and still have that stick that's at the proper size. Because you want the stick, you're like, Christy, to your point, your kids grow so fast, like, how am I I'm not getting a new stick. I just got a new stick. And then, so some parents that maybe aren't, like, ingrained in the hockey world, right? Say, I just bought my kid a stick 7 months ago. Why would he need a stick? Well, they do grow. And we and I think we'll talk about this maybe a little bit in skates too, right? Is that don't buy the stick to eventually fit your kid. Buy the stick to fit your kid and let them learn how to shoot properly with the right size stick that fits them. And then the technology is out there now for $8 to put the plug in there and cut it, and then have that, and then build the extension for your player.
Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that.
And you can experiment
that was
a lot.
A great tip another parent passed along to us, and it did extend the life of the stick. So that's fantastic. So parents, take note of that. That's a great tip.
You might want to buy an extension when you buy the stick.
Yeah.
It's not a bad investment.
It's a great way to experiment and say, I like it. No, Dad, Dad, Ma, cut it. Or and then, now you can experiment with the stick without cutting the stick completely down.
Right.
Say, okay, this is what I like. It's not going to change. Now, if you get, what was that statistic that came out this weekend about Chara's stick has like 155 flex stick. I mean, I can't even imagine this. Yeah. You think about all the torque and the leverage this guy's putting into a stick. But if you're 4'2", don't worry about the flex of your stick.
Not 6'7". Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever he is on skate, 6'11" on skates.
Right. You're a monster. But I think in this case, you just want the right feeling stick and the shaft size that your kid can hold in their hand. Not something that's not going to be, they're never going to grow into a hockey player.
Well, speaking of growing into stuff, let's transition to skates, because I know that's one people are probably waiting for. I'll start this segment off with a story for both of you. I remember when I was about 13 or 14 years old, which is a time kids typically go through growth spurts. I went through 3 pairs of skates in 1 year. And I thought when we got to the third one, I thought my dad was going to lose his mind. But I grew 5 inches that year, to be fair. It was a massive growth spurt. I don't think anybody knew it was coming. But we spent a fair amount of money on skates that year, and we were fortunate to be in a position we could do that. My dad could have told me, hey, curl your toes and suck it up. But no, he went through it. What I do remember is that we didn't buy the top level skate that year. So skates are a funny one. I'll start off with skates outside of that story. I can tell you one misconception right now. All right. So skates are always evolving. There's lots of different types of skates. The most expensive skate rarely equals the best skate. Okay. The best skate for your kid is the one that fits and feels the best. Okay. This was actually a tip I was given far too late when I was playing. I used to go for the top skate every time, the newest skate, because the technology, it's lighter, it must be best. And I finally had a equipment manager say, Lee, just go with what feels good. Go with what feels. Obviously, you're not going to pick a super heavy brick skate, right? But he goes, the top level skate might not fit your foot right. We all have different types of feet. So it was funny because I ended up getting maybe a level or a level and a half down from the top level skate because it felt the best. I trusted the guy. To this date, the best skates I've ever had, right? I did not need the extra whatever $200, $300 material, right? It felt the best, and I went with what felt the best, while also, I got to say this, while also being protective. Okay, like they're very protective skates. But yeah, I'm going to throw this to both of you because I know, I mean, the amount of money you must have spent on skates, Christy, for both your kids, Mike, for your kids so far, it must be incredible.
Yeah, especially, college hockey, we are buying the upper level skate and they're
Right.
they're $700-800 skates. And but when they were younger, fit was so important, and never buy skates to grow into.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's okay. They're a little bit big. Their foot's gonna grow. Don't do that because the kids are gonna end up with blisters. They're not gonna skate well. They're gonna have a miserable time skating, especially if they're loose fitting skates. So you want a nice snug fit. And don't worry about if your kid's foot grows, buy another pair of skates. It's worth it because think about the amount of time they're skating and they're, on their feet and trying to concentrate on the game.
Right.
You don't want them to get off the ice with feet that are blistered and sore because then it's just going to make them miserable. We always had the kids before we left the shop, like Sophia's foot's a little wider. So she went with, I want to say, I'm trying to think of the brand that they make skates that are a little bit wider for wider feet, better suited for them. And she also liked the back of the skate a little bit lower instead of real high up. So, have your kids try on different brands because they do vary in style and comfort level. And then when they find the skate that fits well, have them bake them, mold them to their feet. It's wonderful.
Oh, it is
much easier to break into when they're baked.
Christy, I can tell you that growing up, while I like getting new skates, it was a very painful process most years. I mean, it really took a lot of sessions to break in a pair of skates. And even in the early days of baking skates, it wasn't a guarantee. I mean, there were blisters and pain and everything in between. Nowadays, within one or two skates, you can feel pretty comfortable in your skates. In fact, that equipment manager I talked to you about, I won't say brand names, but I had been using one brand my whole life because that was my brand, right? And then I switched to another brand, and I remember thinking, man, I should have done this a long time ago. This is so much more comfortable for my foot. Like you said, though, I want to get into that too, that skates are pretty well fitted to people's feet nowadays. At the top level, you can even get custom skates built for your foot. In fact, when you go to a pro shop now, most of them have these 3D applications where they can map your foot and tell you exactly what type of skate you need to get. But once again, I want to break this down by ages because it's not something you need to break the bank with at the youth level. You need to find something that fits correctly and something that again, not that you can grow into, but that you can just kind of jump up the next level if you need to, because skates can be $1,000. And don't get me wrong, if you're playing high level hockey in your teenage years, you want to have something high level. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. You want to have a really good pair of skates. But Mike, I know my kid, we did the learn to play start to the game. And I'll tell you what, it's, by the way, for all the parents listening, if you're a new parent, by far the best deal in America is learn to play, because you get ice time and all the equipment for $150, which is, someone was complaining about, I can't believe it's $150. I'm like, just you wait.
That's such a deal.
I know, like you have no idea how cheap that is or affordable that is. And everything's, you have to go in to get fitted. So that's a great deal, by the way. If you're a new parent, you only get to do it once. You only get to do it one time, learn to play. Go check that out online. But Mike, let's toss it to you, because again, skates, especially in those kind of formative pubescent years, that's the best way to look at it. Your kid is going to guaranteed go through a few pairs at least once in their career in one season.
Yeah. So, so the last couple of years, I've completely geeked out on blade technology and skates. I mean, literally, because I couldn't believe how bad some of the fittings were, and more importantly, for me as an instructor and a teacher, and working with private hockey coaches, how nobody paid attention to even the kids' blades and
Right.
levelness and profiling, and because they really, for most part, they really come with cheap steel and steel that's not great. So as you get to when I say a higher level, 12, 13, 14, when you can really start understanding your edges, it becomes much more of a science to understand blade profiling and what, if you're in a 5/8, a half inch, a 3/4, whatever that sharpening is. But I think as far as, like, for me, I'm in the skate business. I mean, I sell skates all the time. I have my custom skates. I'm not growing anymore. Maybe, maybe my foot's getting wider, but I'm not getting longer. So I think the issue I have with the little kids, and for even my own kids, I've never bought them a new pair of skates ever. I mean, by the time these kids they're never wearing the skates out in this time frame. These skates are made so well that you can get. I bought my little 7-year-old a brand new. I mean, they're a brand new pair, especially right now. All these pandemic parents that bought skates for the kids and they didn't play all year, and then now they outgrew their kids' skates. Like I got all these. You go online right now in any of these sports shop flip programs, you're finding. Yeah, you're finding whatever it is, right? You're finding size 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 skates, brand new, out of the box, worn 4 times, $60. It's a $130 skate, $140 skate. And to Chrissy's point, they're all made to be molded. They're all made to be go in. And I think that's where kind of I would say too, if you're going to go to a pro shop, buy your skates in the pro shop, get them properly fitted, get them molded at the shop. Don't buy, if you're going to buy your skates online, don't expect to go to a pro shop and have them mold your skates for free. Because there's a science that a whole fitting piece.
Right.
And I think at the younger levels, there's zero reason. Now, again, for aesthetics, you get like I see kids that are in top end skates at 8 years old, and I'd rather see you spend the money on the proper sharpening and profiling your blade. And as long as the boot fits and feels good, and every kid, you don't know that till you try them on.
Right.
And I think that's the baking process, but then almost figure into your budget. My kid's going to grow out of their skates within the year. So know that if I get 2 pairs of used skates, at least they're properly fitted. Because if they're not properly fitted, right, Christy, and all this money you spend on private skating instruction for skates that don't fit properly, you're really not getting any ROI. So I think just understand that the skates are built like the sticks.
Right.
They're a high performance model now. They don't make even these learn to play skates. I think CCM give those skates out in the packages. They're good skates.
Yeah, they
I
are.
mean, they're not made of cardboard. They're made to be baked and molded to the foot. And then listen, grow out of them, get another pair of $40, $50 skates.
Yeah, I can tell you that my son has those CCM learn to play skates. They've lasted the whole season. They still look brand new.
Right.
I thought for sure when I got that deal, which it's again available to everybody, I was like, well, none of this stuff's going to last the whole season. I'm going to have to, and the entire set has lasted. I actually am blown away by that. Go ahead.
Right. And I'll always check the blades too, because it might be a case too where the skates fit beautiful. They're so comfortable. I don't want to trade my skates, but then you flip around and you look at the blade, really closely look at it, and it's worn out, or if there's a chip in it, you can just flip the blade out very easily and replace the blade. And it doesn't cost that much money either. So when your kid's complaining, oh, I'm just not skating well, I don't know what's going on, even though my skates feel good, it could be the blade. So check that too and have a pro look at it.
Right. So let's transition on. So that's going to kind of end our must-have section, right? We're going to go to some of the other protective equipment now, but basically just reviewing, break the bank on the helmet, get the best possible helmet you can get for your kid's head. Okay. So that's where you want to spend your money. When it comes to sticks and skates, you don't have to break the back, but you do need to do the research. You do need to take the time to make sure that it fits correctly, that it feels right, and it's going to give the best development experience for your kids. Do not be afraid to ask pro shop people their questions and answers. Okay, I know it's a time period where we want to shop online. To me, for those 3 pieces of equipment, go to the store, ask the questions, and buy them in the store if you can, unless you absolutely know. buy them in the store. You're paying for that experience, right? That's where you want to invest a little bit if you can. All right? I understand the deals. I understand people love getting deals. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
you're paying for what you get at a pro shop. There is a lot of expertise, and these guys go through training to learn this stuff. Every time I used to remember the pro shop guys, man. Every time a new piece of equipment came out, they have to, most of them had to study it. They got a whole presentation about it, why it's great, why it's not, so forth and so on. But that's going to move us on to the other protective equipment. So basically, we're talking shoulder pads, elbow pads, pants, and shin guards now. All right. So these are pieces of equipment. I would say right away, don't ever break the bank on these, right? This is one, it's got to fit right. It's got to feel right. And then get this, it's got to protect correctly. All right. I have seen so many injuries. Christy, you alluded to this earlier, above the knee, below the pant, where something's not fitting. And well, puck will never fit in there. Of course it can. It happens all the time. You know what I mean?
And it is amazing how in the world that puck can find itself between the pant leg and the knee pad is amazing, but it does.
It always
and the
does.
Kids end up with huge, I mean, they'll even name their bruises. I mean, get very proud of them. But as a parent, you want to try and lessen those injuries. So it's really important that the pant goes and covers low enough so that you have that protection. And we always get these inserts that are adjustable so that, the kids can pull them off. And if it needs to go a little bit higher or lower, whatever size they're in, and make sure it covers well. Now, Sophia is kind of, she's a CCM fan with her knee pads. For some reason, other brands just don't feel right. And your kids will tell you that. They'll try them on it just doesn't feel right. So keep trying different brands because they are styled a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I love about going in a pro shop too, is because they'll have all these different brands and they'll say, okay, this doesn't feel right. Let's try this brand. Let's try this brand. Let's try this brand, until all of a sudden your kid's going to say, this is it. Mom, this feels good. And then you're like, yay!
I also want to make a good point here because I think a lot of parents negate this, that look, there is a style to the game, right? Kids like to look a certain way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that because I think that's part of confidence. And any pro athlete will tell you that. Like, I got to feel a certain way. I got to look a certain way to play my best. That's not something as a parent you should dismiss unless they're saying, well, I can only wear the top expensive equipment because it makes me look the best. That's not true. But I will tell you that for everybody's look, for everybody's style, there is an affordable piece of equipment that will fit correctly. All right. But when your kid says, well, I want to look a certain way, I wouldn't brush that off, right? Unless they're saying that it's based on how expensive a piece of equipment is. But no, Christy's absolutely right. That especially with shin guards, right? I mean, you need to find something that's going to fit well. And I will also say this as I turn to Mike, that if there's a gap in your equipment, the puck or a stick, something will find a way to show you a gap. I can't tell you how many times I've been chopped on the wrists or chopped on my elbow area that especially when you get older, because they know there's no padding there. Right now, hopefully that doesn't happen too much. It's a penalty every time. But Mike, again,
not if you're good at doing it.
Right.
It's not a penalty.
Right.
I was an expert at that. Yeah. So Chrissy's point. So here's one suggestion I give to all our learn to play parents and our 8U parents, because the amount of sliding around on the ice and sliding into each other there is. I would personally, with my kids, always invest in a really quality cut resistant sock. So if your kids are wearing hockey socks, I don't mean the stockings over the shin pads, but on a hockey sock that they're wearing, they make these Kevlar socks. They're not expensive. They're cheaper than an emergency room visit. And I think you put them on the skates, and what that does is cover that area in those gaps between the skate and the bottom of the shin guard. I can't tell you how many kids I've seen, jumping in and learn to play in 8U that want to play goalie, but they're not wearing goalie equipment. And that's where all these cuts happen. And and if your kids have their sharp blades like they're supposed to, you just risk all this other stuff. So I definitely would recommend that. Shin guards, I love that, Christy, that you're pointing out that, when you go into a shop, you get to see not only how they feel and the weight, but the width. Like some kids just don't like they almost feel like they're hitting each other as they're skating, down the ice. So it all depends on how your kid skates. You might say, oh, these are the most protective, shin guards there are. Yeah, but they're too thick. They're too thick for my kid's legs. And having that adjustable kneecap is great. I mean, those are huge pieces. And then as far as the breezers go, making sure that they're, you might want a kid, depending on who your child is. A lot of the newer breezers or hockey pants are going into like a waistband tie. But suspenders are still really popular. You look at the pros; they're really popular still because the pants just kind of hang on you. And we did go to this whole, level right of the Cooperall years when in the girdle, but it seems like that girdle feeling is just going kind of away, and players are going more for the ability to have a little bit more freedom in movement. And but that's so important to know. Like I like the suspender piece because you can kind of lower and higher kind of where that hip protection is and where the knee protection is. And as I've seen, like you always know the kids at tryouts that probably grew 5 inches during the season because their shorts are always like, okay, well, this kid obviously grew 5 inches this year because he bought a brand new pair of pants. And so those are the kind of things you really want to be. And then again, all that, especially that type of equipment, throw it in the sanitizer, throw it in the wash.
Right.
That stuff lasts forever. Shin guards. You have NHL players right now that have the same shin guards they had when they were 14 years old.
Right. And in between washes, you can take these inserts out and wash these and spray down because I don't like to put the pads in the washing machine. I know some parents do. They like to throw the whole thing, but I'll just soak it really good with a disinfectant or some kind of a sports spray and do it that way. But you can take the inserts out, which get really wet and smelly. Just pull them right out and throw those into the washing machine.
You can look this up on YouTube. I mean, you can use a bathtub and just put some product.
Some people do the bathtub. Yeah,
that's true. It'll look disgusting when you take it out, but it'll be clean.
Yeah, and then put it outside. Let it air dry. Let the sun beat down on it and get all that stink out.
Yeah, I think if you're afraid to get the used stuff, and again, shin guards do not go. There are no expiration dates on shin guards. Right. Just make sure that you buy a used pair. They don't have a crack in them somewhere. That the rivets aren't rusted. You'll see like where they attach the shin guards to the kneecap. Sometimes they're rusted there. They're going to break quicker. But the bottom line is, if you get a good pair of shin guards, especially kids that are growing inches and inches and inches during the year, it's the same idea. You should be able to get new sets of equipment virtually every year up until the time the kids are a teenager. Because they never will. There's a kid is not skating that much where they're going to beat those things up.
Right.
They're not like a catcher shin guards either. Where they're covered, with a sock. So they're always kind of protected. And I think it's just you could get a pair of shin guards. You look at them like, I don't know, these things look brand new to me. And I think that's a great piece of advice on all those pieces of equipment.
Right. And always teach your kids about the jersey. They need to respect the jersey.
Totally.
Don't just throw it in the bottom of a bag. The jersey needs to be on it. Look at you.
I'm gonna throw the damn jersey in the bottom of the bag. It doesn't matter.
I'm with Christy on this one.
You guys get the
hanger.
You guys get the hangers.
And respect the jersey, Mr. Benelli, coach.
Let's dive into that real quick. So obviously there's two jerseys. There's game jerseys and there's practice jerseys.
We're gonna fight on this one.
So listen, I always when I was coaching, the game jerseys had to be respected. They had to be brought in on a hanger. The logo had to be respected. What I used to tell my players with their practice jerseys was it needs to be folded and placed in your bag. And I had a rule, Mike. I had a rule. You don't have to agree with me, but if I ever saw a jersey on the floor, that was a problem for me. All right. Again, you can fold it, you can put it on the bench, you can do whatever you need, but I don't ever want to see it on the floor.
Thank you.
That's
Coach Benelli.
I used to be a pretty hardcore. I mean, you kid me? I used to flip out if I go into a kid's locker room, right? And I go into their bags. That's how crazy I was. I would go through the kids' bags, and if they had any other piece of equipment there that wasn't our equipment, like our logo, our colors, like if I saw the Lee Elias spring tournament T-shirt, championship T-shirt in their bag, I would literally take their bag and throw it out of the locker room and say, he is not part of our culture. He's not part of our brand.
Right. But you wouldn't see that, Mike, because my kids would be respecting that T-shirt, right? They wouldn't just be throwing.
Well, it'll be folded at least it'll be folded under another shirt. But I think, but I'm not, that's a whole nother episode. I'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
I'm not a big
I just need to know where you stand. So you don't require the kids to hang the jersey?
No,
you're
a pro hockey player, you're a college hockey player, you're a prep school hockey player. There's a lot. If you're 8 years old and I don't know, it just, to me, it's like seeing like all the kids walking in with matching sweatsuits and hats and
No,
you know,
it's different.
I just think
different. Our
we
kids didn't have
professionalize-
matching anything, but they always had the jersey on a hanger
I-
as a sign of respect.
I understand.
all.
I understand 100%. I understand 100%.
So real quick before we jump off equipment entirely, the one thing I do want to talk about real quick is just shoulder pads, because it's been a funny evolution of shoulder pads. Now, when I was a kid, you wanted the
Wait.
biggest
Time
pads.
out. I guarantee you had to have Donzies. You had to have had
I
them.
had Douglas pads. I had
Okay.
Douglas.
All right.
So follow
That's a
that
great
because
brand,
Eric
though.
Lindros wore them. That's why I wore them. So
Right,
when
right.
I was growing up, okay, again, the technology hadn't really evolved yet, but it was all about having the biggest shoulder pads, because when I was growing up, the game was a little bit more physical. The game was a little bit more based on physicality. So logic at the time was, well, the bigger your pads, the more protective you'd be. That's absolutely not true. In fact, I had a major shoulder injury with the biggest pads my senior year, and it sidelined me. I had to have surgery. And what we've learned is, I gave these big football pads when I was a kid. What we've learned now is that two things about shoulder pads. I do need to go over this, right? Fit is very important. You want to make sure that your body is covered, right? When it comes to checking, you don't need the biggest shoulder part of the shoulder pads. You need the best protective pads. And the other thing we've realized more and more over the last couple of decades is whatever's covering your heart. You want a strong piece of protective material over your heart. It is extremely rare that this happens, but there have been plenty of cases of a slap shot going into someone's chest and momentarily and extremely occasionally permanently stopping someone's heart. All right. So you want to make sure that the heart area of your shoulder pads is protected, right? Do not let your kids fight you on that. If it is a thin piece of material there, obviously the older you get, the more important this is. You need that area of your chest covered. And I'm saying this because they do make shoulder pads that are very light, that do not protect that area. I have had high school kids say, no, I need the smallest shoulder pads possible because it makes me more agile. And don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a lighter pair of shoulder pads, especially today. The game is not as physical today as it was when I was growing up. It's still physical, but you need your heart to be covered. So if your kid tells you, I want the Sherwood 50-30 men's league pad, and you're playing a top level high school hockey, as a parent, I would tell my child no. All right. Or you're going to need to get some padded Under Armour to go underneath it to cover your heart. Mike, I don't know if you have any comments on that, Christy, as well.
No, yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
Right. You don't mess. And again, look, to me, and again, this is up for debate because everybody parents differently. To me, that's part of the parenting that's it's not negotiable for my kid is until you're out on your own, you will wear the pads that are going to keep
there's a
you
lot
alive.
of Little League baseball leagues that now mandate you have an undershirt with a pad in it. Like, and that's piece of equipment. Like you have to have an Under Armour undershirt, whatever brand makes that. Like my son had to have, it was a whole chest protector and it's just the whole sternum too. It's just your rib cage, your sternum. Right. I mean, there's so areas. And I think I cringe, like when I see, grown men and women that have really, and especially some of these ex-college guys that are shooting on, in practice. And I watch them shooting and I'm like, this kid's like, you're going to kill somebody. I mean, if you hit a kid with a puck, that's not properly protected, forget about getting it, in the back or in the kind of the meaty muscle areas. It's just that instant hit is, really scary. And I think that's where I think definitely shoulder pads come into play with, and Christy, it's the same idea, right? That shoulder guard and bicep guard meets the elbow guard and have that one layer of protection. And I think then when, we'll talk about gloves in a second, but thinking about the continuous protection of your arm too, and how they have to attach and hinge with each other so that, you're protected. And I think that, the shoulder guard, again, you've seen the evolution of the big Donzi, the Douglases, the bigger Eastons, those are huge pads. and then as you've gone down and smaller and smaller, I just saw a Twitter thing of like Gordie Howe with like, the old Cooper shoulder pads that were nothing. I mean, it was like just hanging on his shoulder. And, and of course he had, talk about hand-me-downs. I mean, he had his number, another number, and then another number crossed out. This is Gordie Howe. Imagine this. He's like, oh, here's a pair of shoulder guards that are in the equipment room. Take these. But I think today, find a pair of shoulder guards. You'll be surprised if you get even a good quality pair, how long they'll actually last in the growth of your child.
Well, Mike, I also want to say too that the technology in these things is incredible now. So again, when I was a kid, it was a football pad. It was, this big hard plastic pad.
Right.
And today with like advancements like 3DO and shock absorbent gels, It's amazing how far they've come, to the point that really the best shoulder pads now are pretty snug. They fit pretty snug, and the protective materials in the right area. So what I want to say again, just rounding this out, is, oh, by the way, for goaltending parents, I was going to say, we didn't talk about goaltending because your kid needs to be fully covered to play goalie. Go to a pro shop, go to a goalie expert. I've never been to a pro shop with a goalie expert that did not do a great job. That's a whole nother episode and a whole nother.
They're into it.
I have one more tip, and
Sure, go ahead.
this is from a goalie parent who got a little extra wear out of her kids' pads by going to a local shoe repair shop.
Yeah.
And the shoe repairman was actually able to patch up some of the goalie gear, and so she got a little bit longer life out of it.
Right.
So there's an option
There's
for
a
you.
lot of ways to save money on equipment, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's two messages really we're trying to, hopefully you got a lot out of this episode. One is that just when you're buying something new, make sure it fits right. And that when it comes to helmets and skates specifically, do not, cut corners, right? Find the right thing. If your kid grows out of his skates, he or she, excuse me, it's time to get new skates. The other thing I wanted to impress on parents is that, it's also common for parents to get a little overzealous with pads sometimes and have too much padding. Look, if your kid plays hockey, he or she is going to get hit with a puck. He or she is going to get bruised. He or she is going to have bumps and bruises from playing the game. And there is absolutely no way for any pads to completely cover the body. We're all going to have calf injuries. We're all going to lay down on the ice and take a puck up the pants. It happens, right? Your arms, your kid's going to get slashed. It's going to happen, right? It's going to get chopped on the hand. You just want to have enough there that's going to protect you, hopefully not have anything break, but your kid's going to get bumps and bruises. So you have to know that, right? It's part of the game, but you have to also know that your kid needs to be protected the right way. So pads that fit, find yourself a deal on Sideline Swap. I know there's going to be a stigma now about coronavirus and disease. Get the pads and clean them off before the first play. You'll be fine, right? I'm not going to say someone's not going to put pads online that hasn't been sick, but every kid's been sick in their pads at least once. You just clean them off, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't live on surfaces for long periods of time. So
Absolutely.
if you disinfect it, you're all set. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, 100%. But above all, find stuff that fits. If you have questions, go to the pro shop. Pay those people if you have the money. They're there to help, right? If you know what you need already, go online. One last step. I have to say this, Mike, because this happens a lot, and I can't say I blame parents for this, but when you go to a pro shop to get sized out and then you leave and go online to buy something, I mean, look, if you really, really need to save the money, I get it. It's not an affordable sport all the time, but that is such a slap in the face to the people that work at those stores that are really trying to take care of you and your kid. Spend the extra few dollars if you're being helped. That's what you're investing in, the correct fit, the correct person. And again, I've been in a lot of pro shops in my life. These people genuinely do care, and they genuinely want your equipment to be fitted correctly. So you keep coming back, right?
Well, they also go through, to your point. I mean, I've been, and me as a coach ambassador for a number of brands, I have to go through all the training. You go through all the fitting training, why it's built this way, what the benefits are. And let me tell you something right now. If you're going to be a parent that's going to shop online, get fitted at one shop, spend money on another, or, there's no reason why you can't negotiate with those pro shops. Say, listen, I just saw this on so-and-so website, and I don't know, I'm all the way here. Can I save, if you're saving 5% and you're driving, it's like my father, right, would save gas by driving 4 towns over and spend $6 to save 10 cents. So I would be like, well, where, I know the gas is cheaper there, but it's not, you're here. So just get it. And so I think the same thing with equipment. And I think Lee's 100% right. The pro shops that I've dealt with, they care. They want you to talk. They want to banter. And most of the time, 99% of the time, these are ex-players that are going to say, like, my son just got lacrosse equipment yesterday in the store. Don't get that. I know it looks good. It feels good. I've worn this. It's no good. Don't get it. I mean, you don't need it. Like, and most of the young guys and girls that work in these shops, they're not trained to upsell you. Like, they're not trained to say, oh, make sure if you got him on the hook, get him in the higher cost. They're like, listen, I wouldn't get this. You don't need it. Get this. And it's a great, look at this, what I use. Go to players and men and women that use the equipment, that are in the equipment, that live in it. And they're the ones you want to get to. Now, if you're going to get a used pair of skates, Online, go nuts. But I think if you want the quality of your local pro shop, 100%, we need those brick and mortars, because the only real way to try something is to feel it in sports.
Mike, I got to say this, and then Christy, I'll give you the last word. Is the last year notwithstanding, the last year I completely understand if everybody bought something online. Okay.
Right.
But don't rob your kid of that experience of going to a pro shop. I try and think through the mind of myself as a young kid. That was a big deal, a big day when I got to go to the hockey store. Not again, I got to say this because I don't want to be insensitive. I completely understand if there's a budget and you do not have a lot of money. Like, I'm very conscious of that with some parents, that they're really trying to make ends meet. But if you have the means or the ability, or you save, let your kid go to the pro shop and let them go nuts in terms of trying things and having fun. That was such a big day every year when I got to do that. It was exciting. Dare I say, a bonding moment between my father and me, or my mother and me, if we were going. And pro shops today, when I was a kid, it was a shack. You went in, they might have what you're looking for. Man, you could go to pro shops. They have ice in the back. They have a shooting machine. They'll let you play around. You can try. They have a wall of sticks. You can try the sticks. It's like a wonderland. It's like a theme park. If you find one of those places,
right,
let your kid experience that. Like, that's part of the joys of playing. Again, that's my inner kid coming out. If you can do it, I got to keep saying it. If you can do it,
Listen. It worked for Gordon Bombay. Go in there and feel the shop. That's like one of the best pieces.
Hendricks Hockey.
And all these shops have, they have that memorabilia, and they have the old jerseys, and that's so important. Listen, I'm not, and again, and if you have a shop that you go to that also has, brick and mortar and online, that's great too. I mean, you don't have to actually leave your house, but you just help those local pieces that are helping build hockey in your community. They're always going to be the first ones. I know the shops that I work with, if I say, hey, we're doing a goalie clinic, you have any old goalie gear? All of a sudden I'll have $5,000 in goalie gear in my backyard.
Right.
It's just, you got to go to the people that know the clients, know your kids. And I love that, and that's missing, that cultural feeling of walking into a hockey shop and seeing, all these hockey guys. Listen, I just go to see what the latest mullet look is, on the employees.
So the pro shops are going to love us after this episode.
Go to your local pro shop.
And it's really fun. I mean, Sophia's been going to our local pro shop since she was 3. And it's been, Benji is our guy. And he has been outfitting her since age 3. And such a sense of pride in him to see her go from, skating at age 3 and this learn to skate all the way through travel hockey years, now playing college hockey. When she walks into the shop, he just beams like he's like a proud dad, it's like, Sophia.
Right, you're not getting an atta girl from the virtual agent online, right? So I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's just such a great bond too that you develop with the folks at the pro shop too. They get to know your kids and you and your family, and it's a family atmosphere. I love it.
We live in a digital world, but don't be afraid to make those connections. It is part of the game, and it's something special. So with that said, I think we've been over all of it. If you have any questions about any other equipment you'd like to ask us, feel free to email us at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com, or you can find us on social media. But this has been a pretty enjoyable episode. We were thinking about it. We know it's the end of the season. I'm sure a lot of people will replay this at the start of the season. But, above all, make sure your kids' equipment fits. Make sure that you're within your budget. And make it an experience. Have fun with your kids. They love it. I know it's not a fun experience for the parents when you have to pull the wallet out, but it is a fun experience for your kids. Find ways for them to earn that experience. That's another thing we didn't talk about, right? It's just, you don't have to just go. Hey, listen, if you get good grades in school, we'll go to the pro shop. I remember real quick. Sorry. Last thing. I just remembered this. I remember one of the deals I had with my dad when I was a peewee, when I started playing hockey, was I remember I wasn't scoring a lot early on. And I remember he made a deal. I was like, when you score your first goal or get your first point, we're going to go right to the pro shop and get you your team hat. And I remember saying to him, like, well, like the next day, he's like, no, right after the game, if they're open, we're going right to the pro shop to get your team hat. I scored the next game, and I'm not saying it was because of that, but that was fun, man. That was the thing. Me and my dad, we had something there. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of ways you can make this not as painful as it probably sounds. But any last words, Christy, Mike?
Yeah. just have fun with it. Like you said, Lee, it is, these are opportunities to really bond with your kids. Do your homework, know your research about the different styles and the size and the fit. There's a lot of information out there where you can spend time knowing before you buy. That's really important to know before you buy. And like Lee said, your kids are going to get bumps and bruises. There's no way to avoid it. So stock up on the ice and ibuprofen.
Right. I was also going to say, if you're not researching, your kid is. There's plenty of YouTubers that are gear nuts. Your kid knows. Yeah. So make sure you maybe make that part of the process too.
That's right.
Mike, any last words? Or are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good. Just if you see my son in a brand new set of gloves, don't at me. Don't don't reach out to me. He's probably earned it. No, just have fun with it. I love that. Love the idea of being a part of that journey with the kids, and I love the gear nut kids and the kids that really want to know what kind of stick somebody's using or what kind of tape job somebody has and all that kind of stuff. That's all fun. It's all part of the game. Get ready for the bumps and bruises. It's nothing wrong with that. And I think and enjoy it. And when you think about plan ahead. Start looking and for that used equipment on the market because over the summer your kids are going to grow out of everything.
Right, man. Make it a fun process, and just know that there's no pads for over 40-year-olds that are going to make you safe. So that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure you check out all of our other episodes on ourkidsplayhockey.com or wherever podcasts can be heard. The show's growing. I want to thank you, the audience, once again for being so awesome. We've gotten nothing but great compliments back about the show, and we're going to keep doing it the entire summer into next year. No seasons here. This is just ongoing until it's not. For Christy Casciano Burns and Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias, and we'll see you on the next edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great day, everybody.